According to a new report from Bloomberg, the next Nintendo Switch console is confirmed and it's going to feature a Samsung OLED display. So according to the Bloomberg report, it says Nintendo plans Switch model with bigger Samsung OLED display. From the report, it reads Nintendo company plans to unveil a model of its Switch gaming console equipped with a bigger Samsung OLED display this year. The report then goes on to say that Samsung Display Company will start mass production of 7-inch 720p resolution OLED panels as early as June, with the initial monthly target of just under 1 million units, with the displays slated to ship around July. The new display's resolution mirrors the current Nintendo Switch and Switch Lite, but is an upgrade from the 6.2-inch and the 5.5-inch to a 7-inch display. Now, with a new OLED display from Samsung, that should mean that the next Nintendo Switch console will be much thinner compared to what we're used to with the current Nintendo Switch. Now, this report is in contrast to what President Shuntaro Furukawa has said in February, that Nintendo has no plans to announce a new Nintendo Switch anytime soon. Bloomberg points out that Samsung's involvement is the strongest indication that Nintendo is serious about updating the console and on a large scale. The article goes on to quote somebody named Yoshio Tamura, a co-founder of display consultant DSCC, and they stated that the OLED panel will consume less battery, offer high contrast, and possibly faster response times when compared to the Switch's current liquid crystal display. Now, obviously take this stuff with a grain of salt, but this next part I did want to point out. According to the article, they said Nintendo decided to go with the rigid OLED panels for the new model. The people said a cheaper but flexible alternative to the type commonly used for high-end smartphones. The latest model will also come with a 4K ultra high definition graphics when paired with TVs, they said. That could intensify a long-standing complaint of developers who have struggled with the big difference in resolution between handheld and TV modes and now face a bigger gap between the two. Now, if this part of the report is indeed true, that pretty much confirms the use of a new Tegra chip that utilizes deep learning super sampling, which obviously, if you didn't know, is Nvidia's new crown jewel. So now here's the main question, is when are we going to get it? Now that we know that Samsung is indeed developing the panel on the next Nintendo Switch console, when should we expect the next Nintendo Switch console to actually release? Now, there's two things you have to understand. Currently, the world is facing a massive silicon shortage, which is making it very difficult to release new SoCs. This issue is so apparent whenever you look at the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X being constantly out of stock. It's not the fact that they don't want them to be in stock, it's just because there's a mass silicon shortage, and with the addition of scalpers and their bots basically raking in inventory for both the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, I am almost certain that Nintendo wants to have as many units of the next Nintendo Switch console that they can, so they don't have to worry about losing momentum in terms of their sales. Currently, the Nintendo Switch is about to peak, so they want to ensure that whenever they announce the next Nintendo Switch console, that it doesn't have a big dip in sales. So if they're currently starting production in June, then we should expect the next Nintendo Switch console to be announced sometime for holiday season 2021. I don't see Nintendo announcing the next Nintendo Switch console at something like E3 and then releasing it next year. That is not something they would do. They're going to ramp up production as much as possible, peak the current Nintendo Switch console, launch the next Nintendo Switch or the Switch Pro, and continue the sales trend of the current Nintendo Switch. Now, there's two things that I wanted to talk about. One is if the next Nintendo Switch will feature a 4K display on the television, that pretty much confirms a new Nintendo Switch dock. And since the next Nintendo Switch will have an OLED display, that means the next dock is going to have to be either thinner, or Nintendo will have to figure out a solution to give us a Nintendo Switch dock that's universal for both the Nintendo Switch Pro as well as the Nintendo Switch console. Now, speaking of the Nintendo Switch's size, that also gives us another big question, is with the current Nintendo Switch, the Joy-Cons are perfectly fitted for use on that current size of Nintendo Switch. Does that mean the next Nintendo Switch console will feature a new smaller set of Joy-Cons? I think at this point it's pretty much all but confirmed. It's kind of funny that this news is coming out on the anniversary of the Nintendo Switch console and Breath of the Wild. Not to mention Nintendo's fiscal year is ending at the end of March, so that means their plans for the next year are likely going to include the next Nintendo Switch console. I don't see how they don't release a new Nintendo Switch console within their next fiscal year. Whether or not we're going to get it in time for holiday season or if it's going to be something that's released next year at this time is something we'll have to find out. But either way, this news of a new Samsung OLED display is very exciting. I literally only wanted two things with the next Nintendo Switch. I wanted better Joy-Cons and I wanted a bigger touchscreen display because of my boomer eyes. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and you're excited about the next Nintendo Switch, let me know in the comment section, hit the like button, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description. Thank you guys all once again for watching. This has been Wes, and I will talk to you on the next video.